We had another yard sale yesterday, I understand. It's always difficult to get up the day after yard sale. But here we are, and it's another one of those days of where we sort of a mixture between, gee, that went really, really, really well, and why in the world did we do this? And coming to think of it, I have that thought right before yard sale too. Walking through here at 8 o'clock in the morning, 7:30 in the morning, looking around, was people already lined up at the door, and I'm saying, what are we doing? And this time being no exception, oddly enough, we had a whole bunch of nothing that was in the offering, and a few items that were actually quite nice. We still did well. One thing that amazes me about yard sale is, oh my goodness, I managed to mess up my electronics. What's a good thing? Oh, here we are. One of the good things about yard sale is I can sometimes run into items on the street in weird places. You know what that is? Those of you of older years, you know what that is?
Percolator.
It's a old coffee percolator, stovetop coffee percolator, usually made out of cast aluminum, and I guess you put it works by magic. Just trust me. I've taken this one apart. It works by magic. But it supposedly makes coffee. Do you know how many of these I actually ever put into the bags to the Goodwill? You know, I must have hauled I mean, we've done this 20 years that I've been here, and I probably have dropped every other year. I've dropped one of these. We didn't have one this year, but I dropped one of these in a box and lovingly put it in a Goodwill truck. I didn't have to do that this year because we didn't have one. So we never made any money off of those. I saw that, listen to me closely, I saw that in the museum gift store of the Indiana Art Museum, Indiana State Art Museum. Is that what it's called? Indianapolis Art Museum. In the gift store at the Indianapolis Art Museum. You want to know what the price for the thing is? $55.95. You frown. You probably have started watching your way down at St. Francis, haven't you? You see, you're doing this wrong. You gotta price it right. Don't put a quarter on it. Put 50 bucks on it. Apparently you can sell it in an art museum that way. And life is strange, folks. Life is, but normally when I see one of these, again, this year, luckily we didn't have one. I kind of go, oh gosh, here's another one. And sure enough, but here, what was I thinking? All these years we've sent them to the Goodwill. You know, maybe I should have a different attitude about old coffee makers when they show up in our yearly excursion into yard sale. What shall we even call it? Yard sale purgatory? Oh, well, more heavens, who knows? But here we are. How do you receive things? How do you value things as they are given to you? What do you do with stuff and people and life in general that comes your way? Even the most simple substances as bread. We talked last Sunday about bread. How bread is neither simple nor easy because, frankly, it connects us all the way back to the entirety of creation's history, all the way to the day that God said, "Let there be," and then a chain of events that is really quite neat because it involves comets and meteors and melted planets and volcanoes, lots and lots of cool volcanoes, and then dirt and seed and all these things that happen to make bread. It's just like that coffee maker. How many times does the dinner roll go back? as the waiter departs the table at the end of the dinner. Guilty, guilty, guilty. See. They bring you a roll and you don't receive the roll. How do you receive the simple things that life is made of? I mean, bread, you can't get, you can't get more complicated, but you can't get more basic, more simple. But nothing simple is ever easy. No, it's backwards. Nothing easy is ever simple, right? No, I was right the first time. You get the picture. How do you receive things? So here you're in the desert. You've been set free from slavery like Israel. You've been liberated through a series of miracles. And you are in the desert. And what will you do? What's the first thing you will do? Look to the heavens and complain. I wish we had stayed in Egypt, because there they had stew. They had plenty of good coney sauce. We had better coney sauce in Egypt. We're slaves, but we had better food. And manna happened from heaven. So I'm thinking about manna every once in a while as being both a sort of a judgment and also a gift. Because frankly, as manna is given, it is given in response to complaint, a complaint that should not have been necessary. For after all, these were former slaves who had been set free from bondage in Egypt, and maybe should have had by that time an inkling that God was somehow going to take care. Instead, they, of course, complained, and they complained directly to Moses, saying, "You did this to us. You brought us out. You are trying to get us all killed. Let's have a party. Let's form a committee and go back to Egypt. They'll arrange it for us." It's receiving liberation with a frown, with resentment. Moses didn't have any bread to give, but God certainly did. And Moses, through God, received manna, and the people received manna. There was manna given every day. So now you're in the desert and you have manna. It is gathered every morning. As a matter of fact, you gather only as much as you need, because if you gather more than you need, guess what? It spoils overnight. It's just that way. You every day receive anew. It's almost that for a little time in the desert, God has revoked the curse that is on Adam and Cain, that they will, by the sweat of their brow, have to ask the ground nicely for bread. No, here for a little while, God gives freely. What do the people do? What do they do? Come on, you know it's the story of the Exodus. What happens all the time? The people complain. Thank you. I mean, let's go with the story here. This is one of the fun parts about that story. It is always a story between humanity that is struggling hard to believe in God as God, the good God that has set you free, and our own internal distrust that things might it could be just different, and we want it different. The struggle that God knows best, or we know best. It's kind of like the struggle of Cain, who, as a son of Adam, knew he had to work the field along with his brother, and both of them worked hard for their sustenance every day, only that when they came to bring God thanks, one did it in pride for all the work he had done, and the other one did it in thanksgiving for all the gifts he had received. Which one of those are you? It seems to not matter. Because even if free bread is given in the desert, people complain. Even if Jesus is in the wilderness, and in the wilderness turns 5 loaves of bread and a couple of fish into a meal for 5,000. People will apparently surround him and then ask, "What sign are you going to give us that you are a prophet?" And forgetfulness seems to be a human trait. I mean, forgetfulness is the only thing that explains how that coffee pot could be $50. And it's sitting on the corner at every yard sale in the United States during the summer. You don't have to spend $55. You just got to go to yard sale. This counts on the fact that you're forgetful. Yeah, but it's received. God gives, the people take, but somehow, so quick do they forget. The work of God is to put your faith in Jesus Christ and to have some memory of all the things God has done, even if it's stuff that you are not immediately personally connected with, as for example, the creation. But certainly, if God did not have the patent rights on all life, on all bread, and all sustenance, then that which is on the altar wouldn't be a sacrament, because it would be not his work. And most certainly it is his work. From the very moment that the bread is visualized, is anticipated, which was already at the time when God said, "Let there be light." God has done many signs. The fact that you are breathing is one of them. I understand you do it about 40 times a minute. Is that about right? Somebody here medically trained that you know these things?
Bill?
What's a good respiratory rate? Nurse? Nurse?
Good respiratory rate?
Yeah.
20 minutes.
20? Okay, so I'm talking like you're all out of breath. Okay, never mind. 20 times a minute, there's a sign that comes to all of us anew. And every one of those breaths could give praise. Every one of those breaths should give praise, for it speaks to us of life that's given to us through the eternity of God, that's renewed for us through the sacrifice of Jesus Christ, that reminds us every day of the goodness of God, that calls us every day to remember that Christ has given himself utterly for our renewal, for our recreation, for our salvation. We best advise to approach this with that all in mind. It's God's work, the whole thing, from the beginning, all the way to you. What comes to you is from the beginning. And it is the beginning itself, for it is Jesus Christ, the Son of God himself, in the flesh, given to you. There's bread and there's wine. There's the Lord sacrificed in his cleansing blood. Are you here? Will you be there for it? Come forward to it. It's an act of faith to say, I want this. I need this. And this is my life.